Hey there, my fellow author. I'm Sarah Elizabeth Sawyer, an old soul kind of writer living my dream as a full-time author and authorpreneur. But I didn't start out living a confident, creative lifestyle. I struggled with the fears and the mental and emotional barriers that so often plague writers at all stages of their author career. But the truth is that with the right knowledge, tools, and training, you can overcome those barriers. I'm here to teach you how I've developed a lifestyle that's allowed me to publish 19 books and counting. Each week, as you tune into the Confident Fiction Author podcast, you'll get clarity on the steps you need to take to advance your writing career. Whether it's developing your ideal writing routine, tackling new skills like dictating your fiction, or overcoming the obstacles life throws your way, this podcast will help you live a more confident, creative lifestyle. Let's get started. Well, hello, my friend, and welcome to this episode of the Confident Fiction Author podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Elizabeth Sawyer, and today I'm going to be talking about how to win arguments with your writing brain. And these are arguments you may not even realize you've been having with your brain. So let me just ask, have you ever really wanted to do something so simple, like leave a review on a book you loved, or send an email, maybe emailing back a reader who had kind things to say about your story, or even just opening up your manuscript to edit one chapter? And for some reason, those things just feel impossible. Maybe it's something that would only take 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 10 minutes. But suddenly you'd rather take out the trash or scroll Instagram for an hour. So why are our brains like this? Like, why do we procrastinate something that would really only take a few minutes and it's not even a difficult task? Well, today I'm going to show you why your brain resists the very things you want to do. These are things you do want to do, and how you can recognize those sneaky arguments it makes, and most importantly, how you can win those arguments. So let's get into it. Why does your brain argue with you, especially when it comes to tasks that are related to writing or your fiction writing career? I'm not a scientist. I'm not an expert in the fields of, and I honestly haven't studied, just really super in depth on brain science, but I've picked up a few things along the way, and from reading books and talking to people who are smarter than me in terms of how our brains work. And one of the things that we need to remember about the brain is it's really wired for survival, and it wants to conserve energy in case it needs to run from danger or fight that danger. So we've heard of the fight or flight mechanism, and that's what our brains do. And when we give it too many things to think about, too many decisions to make, it starts conserving that energy, because there could be danger right around the corner that our brains are going to need to have that energy for. And so that wiring, it does show up in procrastination and resistance, even for small creative tasks. So like leaving that book review suddenly feels like a huge mountain, especially if it's at the end of the day. It would only take a couple of minutes, but you just can't get your brain there. You can't get your brain to do it. This actually happened with me, with a contractor and his wife. They're sweet friends, and she was asking me if I could leave a review, just like a paragraph review about the work that he did for us, which he did a great job. And I wanted to do that, but it felt like such a mountain. And what added to it was the fact that they both know I'm an author, and she was like, "You're such an excellent writer. I'm really looking forward to your review." And my brain was just like, "Oh, so much energy. We're going to have to expend so much energy to meet those expectations and actually sit down, write this paragraph, and then go post it on Google Reviews." It was not a big deal. It really wasn't. And I finally did get it done. But why would something so simple feel like such a huge mountain to climb? And it's because my brain was resisting that, and I was procrastinating on it, which only made it worse. But it was because my brain wanted to conserve that energy in case it needed it for survival. So if you've ever felt that tug of war inside your head of this is not a big deal, why don't I do this? And then you just absolutely feel like you can't do it, just know that you're not lazy. You are human. The good news is you can win those two that's in your head. You can win that tug of war. Do what you need to do to live your best creative lifestyle. So the first thing you can do is recognize those arguments. So they may sound something like, this is going to take too much time. I'll do it later. Or I just need to be in the right mood. I need to have that inspiration, and then it'll be so easy to do. So here's what I want you to do right now. Just pause for a minute and write down one thing you've been putting off. So just a small thing, not editing my whole book, like just one small thing. Maybe it's opening up your research folder and going and looking up key dates in your historical fiction novel. But it's for some reason you just have not gotten that done, and it's hanging you up on doing the rest of your outline because you don't have that date. And ask me how I know. So just think about one small thing that you've been putting off and write that down, and then listen for those excuses from your brain to show up and write those down, identify them, because really awareness is that first step to winning. It's sitting down and just taking a few seconds to think about that task that you've been putting off and listen to the excuses that your brain is throwing up at you, that your brain is telling you all the reasons why you need to procrastinate on this task. So having that awareness is your first step. The next is outsmarting your brain. So now that you've identified that one small thing and you know the excuses that your brain is giving you for why you don't want to do this right now, we're going to outsmart it by breaking it down into micro goals. So we could talk extensively about goals, but we're going to break this down into micro goals that you can do right now. You can take the action on them right now. And what I have found is when you break down a task so small, your brain really can't protest. Like it can't protest you doing this tiny little goal. And I've heard some authors describe it as like just doing one push-up. And it's so ridiculously simple and easy. There is absolutely no reason for you not to do this tiny little thing. And whether that push-up is on the floor or just up against the wall, I know we all have different physical challenges, but just think about what is one thing that is so ridiculously simple and is totally possible for you to do. Break it down, break your main task down into just that micro goal. So maybe instead of, edit this whole chapter, edit chapter 3, just say your micro goal is to open the file and read the first sentence. That's it. Just keeping it very, very simple. And another example of this is my 5-minute fiction habit. I've used it, I've taught it several times now, but you can find that over in episode number 10. And that's my 5-minute fiction habit where I just every day, I make sure I write just 5 minutes of fiction. And I have it built into my morning routine. It's absolutely ridiculous if I don't do it because it is so easy. So rather than having a goal of writing 1,000 words a day or writing for 1 hour every morning, it's just 5 minutes of fiction. And thinking time, reviewing my outline, like that counts in my 5 minutes. So I may only get a couple of sentences actually written, but I have done my 5 minutes of fiction and my brain can't protest that. Like it's tried a few times. It's tried in the mornings when it comes time in my routine to do my 5 minutes of fiction. It's like, oh, no. We need to conserve energy. We have the whole day ahead and we need to be careful and conserve energy. And I'm like, thanks for the input. No, thanks. I'm going to do my 5 minutes because it's so simple and I'm able to get in it and get out of it so quick. I hardly even notice sometimes. So that's one strategy, breaking it down into micro goals. Another one is incentives or quote treats. So we think about if you have a dog, especially, we think about treat training and there's a whole gamut of things on that. But really retraining our brains with rewards can be so powerful in winning those arguments with your writing brain. And there's a couple of reasons. One, fiction writing energizes me. So once I've won that argument and I actually do fiction writing, it energizes me and it lets my brain know, hey, this is actually a good thing because it's contributing energy, not taking energy away. So it's actually giving me more energy for that fight or flight. Should I need it for survival later in the day? Fiction writing itself is a treat, and it's a treat to my brain. There are some other treats you can give it. So like if you finish a scene, maybe you get to make yourself a cup of tea, and that's energizing. That's a reward. If you leave that book review, maybe you get 5 minutes of guilt-free scrolling on Instagram, which may be energizing for you, especially if it's guilt-free and you're not doing it as a procrastination technique. So it's actually giving your brain energy. So the key is that you are training your brain. It's okay to use energy in those tasks because one, it didn't take that long, and two, your brain was actually received energy from doing it. And that leads us into brain triggers and rituals. There are some authors who have very specific things that they do when they're getting into their fiction writing session. Say they have a startup routine, maybe they light a candle, open Scrivener, and tap their dictation function and get into writing their story. Some authors will stop in the middle of a sentence to make restarting easier. And so it's less energy to think about how am I going to start this scene or how am I going to start this next sentence. If it's already started for you, when you come back into it, it makes restarting easier and you're using less energy. So your brain's like, okay, it's good to do this because it's not going to take up a lot of energy to get started in my fiction writing. Just know when you feel that heavy resistance and that temptation to procrastinate, that is a cue, not a stop sign. It means that your brain thinks it's protecting you, but really it's holding you back from getting your writing done, your editing done, whatever it is that you really want to do, and you want to do it now, but your brain is trying to protect you. It's trying to protect that energy. Just recognize that it's holding you back, and it's okay to use that as a cue to push through the resistance. In applying this to your writing life, it can be with starting your day's writing session, tackling revisions, or finally hitting publish or querying your manuscript. Just remember that all of these things are arguments with your brain, but they're arguments that you can win. So wrapping up here, remember that your brain is often resisting so that it can conserve energy. And you don't need to fight against that. Find ways to energize your brain with those tasks that you need to do. And the first step to that is, of course, recognizing the argument, recognizing that threat to your energy that your brain is perceiving so that you can outsmart it with those micro goals and incentives and rituals to win those arguments every time. So the next time your brain tries to argue with you, remember, you are in charge. You can win that argument one small decision at a time, and the more you do it, the easier it gets. I encourage you to try one of those strategies today on something that maybe you've been avoiding. And one of those might be leaving a review on the Confident Fiction Author podcast. I know for me, leaving reviews, book reviews, and podcast is something that I often find resistance building around, but it's really not that difficult. And it does mean so much to authors and podcasters. I know what it does for you to receive a new positive book review, how energizing that is. And honestly, for me, when I leave reviews like I did for my friend, the contractor, that gives me energy. So I think you'll experience the same thing when you leave a review here on the Confident Fiction Author podcast. So I would really appreciate if you did that. And I would love to hear that you've treated yourself afterwards with some guilt-free scrolling or a piece of chocolate, something that energizes your brain. And do give yourself that reward because, hey, you just won an argument with your brain. That's all for this episode, my friend. I'll see you next time in the Confident Fiction Author podcast. Take care.